Tuesday, June 16, 2020, Digital Trends Live is about to start. Here are some of the topics we're covering on today's episode of the show. Did you notice any issues yesterday with making phone calls or texts? If so, you're probably a T-Mobile customer like me. We'll let you know what most likely went down to cause the massive outage. We'll also be joined by the author of Algorithms of Oppression, How Search Engines Reinforce Racism. Safiya will be here to talk about the issues of systemic racism in technology and what's being done. Plus, we'll have our own smart home editor, John Velasco, for a hands-on review of the Logitech Circle View, a new security camera with a lot of updated features centered around privacy. And we'll have our segment, Who's Got Game today, where we partner with Fullscreen to shine the spotlight on incredibly talented people, with today's guest being YouTube star Rosie Okumura. All of that and more on today's episode of Digital Trends Live. And hello, everyone. This is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you very much for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. We broadcast live here every single weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and more. We're broadcasting live across a number of different platforms. So hit subscribe, join the conversations that we get to have. But let's get you started off here with some news. And certainly the biggest story yesterday in technology had to do with the outage that happened because of this. So it started off around 2 p.m. Eastern time, where people started noticing that phone calls, texts weren't working on a number of different services. And on top of that, we heard news that Facebook could be down, that Instagram could be down, that a lot of places were down. And here's where it all comes down to. The rumors had to do with a DDoS attack. There was an anonymous account that actually posted saying there was a massive attack going on against the United States. But it looks like, from the investigation that has now been happening, that it all stems from an issue with T-Mobile, where T-Mobile's network specifically was down for a long period of time. It sounds like they were trying to make some updates to their system that went horribly wrong. And it resulted in their services not being able to take phone calls or texts for a number of different areas. Sometimes data was out. And because of that, you had other phone services, and this is coming from Verizon and AT&T, saying that we weren't having any issues. But if you were calling somebody who was on T-Mobile, then there's a good chance that phone call wouldn't have gone through, making it seem like you were having an issue as well. This is all according to what these services are saying. So T-Mobile, Sprint, and US Cellular, if you were on any one of those, there were issues. I myself couldn't make a phone call or a text for hours, many hours yesterday, sporadically coming through. So I'm sure a lot of you have this. Now we do have word from the FCC. FCC Chairman Ajit Pai said that it was unacceptable and that they're going to be launching an investigation into what happened and why this occurred. So we'll see what else we get out. But as far as right now, all indications are that it wasn't a massive DDoS attack, that it was in fact an internal issue with T-Mobile that just caused issues for everybody yesterday. But it does seem to be working now. They did say late last night that they had solved it, but we'll have to see if there's more issues that pop up today. We'll keep you up to date at digitaltrends.com. Continue on here, let's give you some updates on a couple of other services, talking about Instagram right now, and an announcement that they have made today with their top executives saying that they're going to start reviewing their harassment and verification policies, and this is because of some of the issues that have come up with black users on Instagram. So they address specific things. They said on harassment that they'll look at specific safety issues affecting black users, and then the, quote, need to address potential gaps in how our products and policies protect people from these issues, protecting people from trolls and harassment online. Very important. And then when it comes to verification, this is an issue that's been brought up quite a few times on Instagram of how that process works. They're not unique in this. You see other social media platforms addressing this as well. But they said that they're going to make sure that the process is more inclusive, and that, quote, we're looking into our current verification criteria and we'll make changes to ensure it's as inclusive as possible. So some other things that they brought up there, a lot in it. They said that this is really addressing complaints from black creators who say the app discriminates against them and their content. So Instagram is going to be making some updates to that. They're aware of that, and they'll be working on that. They put out that statement. We've got that at Digital Trends if you'd like to take a look at it and review what it is that they said. Continuing on with trending news here at the top of the show, let's talk about COVID-19 and some of the different things that are going on with everybody leaving quarantine, and as we see shops and in particular restaurants opening back up, Yelp has now made it easier for businesses to identify and notify everyone of what they're doing when it comes to precautions. So they've made this update so that small businesses, so that restaurants can select from a number of 10 different things, they said, the 10 most widely accepted protocols that consumers expect to see, and businesses can say, hey, here's what we have going on here, whether that's something like mandatory face masks and gloves for staff, or contactless payment, or mandatory face masks for people who attend the restaurant, or people who go to the restaurant. So a lot of things that go along with that, and as we see places opening up, I'm going to guess some of that could even adapt and change too. Things like indoor or outdoor seating, and whether or not temperature checks are something that are required. So all of these are things to consider now when going out to a restaurant, as some of these things do open up, and measures that restaurants are taking are important to know before you go down there. So this is something you can take a look at now at Yelp, just making it easier, and we've seen a number of different services also trying to make that a little bit simpler for businesses to advertise what is going on. But that is Yelp's update with that. Continuing on here with trending news stories, this is what the people are talking about as of right now, and we're going to go to Tesla. We're going to switch it up a little bit. Elon Musk making an announcement that the Tesla Model S has broken the 400-mile range mark, making it giving it basically the best mileage in the electric car market, according to this. So if they have this, they do have this, this gives them the best. So this has to do with the Tesla Model S, and this comes from the EPA actually rating this. So the EPA rated it for 390 miles back in February 2020, so February earlier of this year, which seems so far away right now. They rated it for 390 miles. Elon Musk complained about that, saying that that wasn't accurate, that it was actually longer, but now they do have a new test that put it at 402 miles. So 402 miles is the range, and that is where we are at. Adding up that today's message from the company simply makes it official. So this is what Elon Musk is saying, but that does give it breaking that 400-mile range. So some of the ways they said they were able to do that was lighter materials in the battery pack, lighter drive units. They actually changed up the wheels in order to make it less resistant when you're driving it. And these are all things as we see companies try to push this battery life. And one of the main issues is weight. It always comes down to that with electric vehicles, is these batteries are very heavy. So anything they can do to lighten that up will extend that battery life, and also improvements to the battery itself certainly help. But that is where Tesla's at, saying the Model S has broken the 400-mile range market, 402 miles. So definitely a long-lasting battery. And that is something, again, you can read more about at digitaltrends.com. Continuing on, let's talk about the FDA. So we've had the FCC, the EPA. Let's talk about the FDA. So the FDA has done something for the very first time as well, and they have approved the first video game prescription for ADHD. Now, this is a prescription that a doctor could write, and it has to do with Aquila Interactive's Endeavor RX, which was formerly called Project Evo, and it's a video game, as you're seeing right there. That's what it is, but it's specifically designed to help kids between the ages of 8 and 12 years old with ADHD. It had 7 years of clinical trials that went on with this. There were over 600 children that were used in the studies, and they determined that it does actually make a difference, so much so the FDA has approved it for the first time ever as a video game that can be prescribed for children. So the idea is the game itself is an obstacle dodging, target collecting game that they ask people to play for 25 minutes a day, 5 days a week for 4 weeks. So that was kind of where the study was, and they found that 1/3 of kids no longer had a measurable attention deficit on at least one measure of objective attention. So they're not saying this cures ADHD by any means, but they said that it does help treat it, and it does help children handle some of those issues. So again, this is the first time a video game has been set up for this from the FDA, getting approval to be a prescription to battle ADHD. So Endeavor RX, you can read more about that, digitaltrends.com. And finally here in trending news, something that was just kind of breaking as we were getting ready to go on the show, and that has to do with Boston Dynamics with their Spot robotic dog. Lest you forget, they're still out there, and they have been being utilized in a number of different businesses so far. They had some test cases going on. In particular, the test cases have been with high-risk jobs where maybe chemical measurements needed to be taken, or something that was tedious and was risky for a human, such as taking just images or data on a rough work site like an oil well or something along those lines. And so they've had those out there for a while, but now they're saying that any business can pick one up, at least in the United States so far. So you can pick one up now for $74,500 per robot. and get your own spot. As you can see right there's some of the tests of the failures of them. They've done a lot better now, and that's a little bit creepy when you see them all rise like that, but that's even more creepy. So that is, anyway, the Boston Dynamics Spot Robot. You can pick one up now for your business for a mere $74,500, about the same price as the Tesla Model S. So make your choice, Tesla Model S, Spot Robot. There it is. You can read more about that at digitaltrends.com.
Product of the day.
Indeed, our product of the day today has to do with a speaker, and we all want good sound when we're at home. So this is the Polk Audio Magnify Mini Home Theater Surround Soundbar. It's a lot that I just said right there. Let me explain exactly what this is. So this is a soundbar, and it's Polk, so you know it's good audio. It works with 4K and HD TVs. It's a compact system with big sound. It's got a wireless subwoofer included. So if you're worried about your television not putting out enough sound, this is a good way to solve some of that. So these things it has SDA audio technology, 5.1 Dolby digital coding, so you can really give your room a multi-dimensional surround sound. It's wireless, so you can stream music with Google Cast from your smartphone, tablet, or other compatible Android devices for a multi-room system, but you can also use Spotify, Pandora, all those kinds of things as well. Includes HDMI and optical cables, and yeah, like I said, 5.1 digital coding, Dolby digital coding. So that's a really big key system right there if you want to experience that Dolby sound in your home theater or your living room, wherever you want to set it up. So that is the Polk Audio Magnify Mini Home Theater Surround Soundbar, and that's our product of the day. So what you want to do is follow along that link that I've got right there. Whatever platform you're watching on, there's going to be a link, or there's going to be a URL that you can type in to take advantage of this. It's on sale right now, normally $2.99. It is on sale for $259.99, so you get about 40 bucks off if you click through on that link. So a good opportunity to take advantage of that, and that is our product of the day. All right, thank you everybody for joining us here today. We've got so many things that we're going to be discussing today, and I encourage everybody to join along and join in the comments. Next, though, is certainly a very important topic, and somebody I've been really looking forward to talking to for a while. I'm glad that we have her on the show. So the author of Algorithms of Oppression, How Search Engines Reinforce Racism. We've got Safiya Noble on next to talk about her book and how important it was then when it was written and how important it is now facing everything. So that's coming up next, a great discussion. Stick around, back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and thank you for joining us here today. We appreciate all of you joining in on the discussions that we get to have, and certainly with the social upheaval and growing mass awakening to the issues of discrimination and racism that are systemic in the United States, it's imperative to look at how it's being carried out in other facets of life that we may not think of, like search engines, and that's part of what we're going to be discussing right now. Joining us, we have the author of Algorithms of Oppression, How Search Engines Reinforce Racism. We have Safiya Noble. Thank you very much for being here with us today to talk about this. And I want to give everybody just a little bit of context, because you put this book out in 2018 and certainly was pertinent then and very pertinent right now. What was some of the background of this and some of the information you found that felt the need to write this book?
Thanks for having me. I'll tell you, one of the most compelling things that I found as I was studying search engine results is the way in which dehumanizing misinformation and racist propaganda show up on the first page of search about a variety of different communities of color. And I was taken aback at first by noticing, in fact, how many women of color, girls of color, are misrepresented with pornography, for example, as that being the primary way in which they're represented. You don't have to add the word sex or porn But of course, when you start to extend this and looking at other kinds of news stories, whether it's the murder of Trayvon Martin or the death of Mike Brown, Google auto fill tends to associate words like criminal record, criminal background, really trying to, again, frame up people of color in these misrepresentative ways. And I think this is something that the public really needs to better understand.
Which is horrible. I mean, everything that you just brought up there, it's just that's awful that is. And search engines are so powerful in influencing us. How did this happen? How did it get to that, and why was that happening?
Well, one of the things people fail to remember is that in the early days of the internet, um, when we were looking for information or knowledge, we were searching, in fact, kind of virtual libraries. We had people, human beings who were actively involved. They were subject matter experts. They were, in fact, librarians, teachers, DIY experts. And we really understood the subjective nature of knowledge and expertise, and we could really see when we were in spaces where there was not a lot of deep expertise. With the advent of the modern day search engine, we have artificial intelligence that is often driving the kinds of results that we get. We are engaging with an advertising platform rather than a library, which is quite different. And that means those with the most capital, those with the most money, are able to optimize keywords and make their content visible, but also people who are interested in gaming these systems are so vulnerable to search engine optimization in ways that allow white supremacists, white nationalists, people who are interested in spreading propaganda, racist propaganda from all over the world, quite frankly, not just within the US borders. And that is one of the other ways that we see a lot of dangerous, misrepresentative information propagate in these kinds of platforms.
How do we, going forward, implement proper internet protocols or regulations or development to help mitigate some of these issues and put a stop to this?
Well, one of the things we need are many more search engines than just one monopoly leader. That is certainly a way to intervene. The other way is to think about what it might mean instead of wholly regulating something like Google. What would it mean if we had public interest search engines? Curated again by subject matter experts, journalists, professors, educators, librarians, people who are deeply knowledgeable about a variety of topics. And of course, we have some of these kinds of systems already, but they are not wholly supported and well funded by the public. So, in much the way we have roads and bridges as part of our physical infrastructure, we should really be thinking more deeply about our information and knowledge infrastructures and not leaving that to commercial advertising platforms. One of the things I often tell regulators and policymakers is that while it's important to think about regulating big tech, it also means we need to double down on our democratic institutions like colleges, universities, K through 12 schools, public libraries, and so forth, because these are the democratic institutional counterweights to big corporate multinational advertising companies that appear to be knowledge brokers in the public good, but they are, in fact, are not.
Um, Going from search engines and something like that, let's talk about social media, and in particular right now, and how it's being utilized and the power that it has. Do you feel like it's been an asset or deterrent to social activism right now?
Well, there's no doubt that people are using social media to organize, to know where to be in the world, and to voice their concerns for people who can't be in the streets but want to make a difference, want to lend their voice to calls for racial justice. The internet has been an important facilitator for that. By the same token, it serves as a powerful surveillance mechanism. Everyone who does participate is often subject to greater scrutiny by law enforcement and other kinds of government agencies that, let's say, are not sympathetic and supportive to the cause of racial justice. So I think we need to understand what these technologies are. Many people, I think, are being collected into databases and being framed with certain types of data profiles based on their internet activity, from their searches to their engagement in social media. And one of the things we want to be concerned about is the incredible encroachment that is upon our civil and human rights. So I think we need to think tremendously about the possibilities of the internet, but we also must think about the perils.
I think one of the things that's really important right now is education and understanding everything that's going on and learning, and also knowing where and how to help, and asking I mean, with your incredible background and everything that you're doing, and with this book, I mean, I think a great way to start is to read the book, but going from there, like, what are some other ways that people can be involved, and where should we direct people to help out with what you're doing?
Well, one of the things I think we want to think about is in the current moment where we have organizations like Black Lives Matter calling for the defunding of the police, for example. One of the things we can do to educate ourselves is really listen to what that is. And one of the things that this means is that people are calling for reinvestment into other kinds of social infrastructure. That means public education, public media, public health. Think of all the things that are not funded that help bolster a democracy, help bolster the kind of fair societies and just societies that we want. But when we don't have the resources that we need in order to kind of shore up those systems, then we have to ask ourselves some tough questions. So I think people need to be voting. They need to be registering to vote. They need to be taking people out to vote. They need to run for local offices, participate, get a good critical technology agenda for your community. Are your students, are your children being surveilled and captured into databases as they participate in this experiment of democracy? What are all the attendant ways that digital technologies might, in fact, be undermining these struggles for racial and economic justice? There are so many complex and wonderful books that really help us understand it. We need more than 5 minutes, but I'm so grateful that you're highlighting this topic. But there are great books people can read. We have a list at our UCLA Center for Critical Internet Inquiry of 15 plus books that you can read about racial justice and technology. I think that's a great place people can start, and then they can start to see in their own lives places where they can make a difference.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that information. Been talking a lot about your book behind the scenes, just how important that is. We've talked about algorithmic oppression before, and it really is something that needs to be highlighted. But like you said, all of these other organizations need highlighted as well. And thank you for joining us just for even this brief amount of time to talk about this. Appreciate your work, and thanks for being here on Digital Trends Live with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Safiya Noble, so go back and watch this interview again, because you can see all those different things that she highlighted. There's so many important points that were just brought up during that, and they all need attention. And so very much thank her for being here with us today. All right, continuing on here with Digital Trends Live, we do have our own smart home editor, John Velasco, is going to be joining us next to talk about a new camera to help keep your home secure, and in particular, private. Privacy is a big issue. That's coming up next. Stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Again, thank you very much for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. We appreciate you hitting subscribe, joining the conversations we get to have, all of that. I'm going to stop talking now. Let's bring on our smart home editor, John Velasco, who's going to talk about a new camera. Privacy is a big concern. I know this one addresses some of that. John, hello. What is going on with this camera?
Hey, Greg, thanks for having me. So I've been checking out the Logitech Circle View. This is actually their latest camera. Logitech has come out with other cameras in the past. This is their third generation camera. It follows after the original Logitech Circle and then followed by the Circle 2. And this is all about privacy. So if you're concerned about potentially someone is watching you from the other side, or a hacker potentially, or Big Brother, this is a camera you want to take a look at. So I'm talking about the first thing here. It's the design. It's a little bit different from the previous Circle 2 because the Circle 2 was very versatile as far as what you could do with its design. You could stick it to the wall, you could stick it to an outlet, you could have it fixed on a surface or even outside. So there was a lot you could do. But here with the Circle View, they've changed it up so that it's now a fixed design. So no longer it'll adapt to different types of scenarios. It has a premium finish, which I like. It has a matte finish and a metal base, and it's also IP64 rated, so it is weatherproof. You can use it outdoors, and it does feature an integrated USB-C cable for power. I personally prefer something that could be detached, but the reason why they have it like this is because of the weatherproofing. They won't be able to make it water resistant if that cable were exposed or that port was exposed. So as far as the biggest thing about the Circle View, it's pretty simple as far as the setup process, and it's worth noting that it is only iOS compatible. So if you own an Android smartphone, you're pretty much out of luck with this one. So that's something very different. So it kind of limits its reach with users. The nice thing about it, though, if you do own an iOS device, is that you don't have to download an additional app. You know, like traditional security cameras. If you buy a Google Nest or an Arlo camera or even a Ring camera, you got to download obviously the other app for that. But this, it only requires you to set up through the Home app with iOS. So you use the Home app to set it up. There's no additional passwords or usernames you got to create. As far as the performance, though, Greg, it's pretty good. As far as a security camera, you have 1080p footage, really sharp, accurate looking colors. There's plenty of detail. The night vision in this works upwards of around 15 feet. And it has motion detection, so you'll get alerts and notifications with that. But a key thing that I think is missing is that it doesn't have activity zones. So you'll always constantly get notifications whenever it does detect motion.
Oh,
And as far as like some of the enhanced features you see out there, like facial recognition or pet detection, you're not going to find any of that here. So I'm not sure what phone you use, Greg, but this only supports iOS and HomeKit, and it does require a subscription to iCloud. You need to pay at least $3 per month in order to use the recording functionality of this camera. But it's all about privacy. Like you said earlier, if you're big into privacy, you want to protect your privacy at the home, the Circle V is great because on the back, there is actually a button, an electronic shutter, so that effectively cuts the video and audio. So there's nothing going in, nothing going out. And on top of that, it's designed so that you could face the camera downward. So if you're really concerned that someone's watching, you have that option there. And the last thing is that it is encrypted. The footage is encrypted. It's not being uploaded to a third party. It's all through iCloud, so you know that your footage is safe and secure.
Couple of things on there. I mean, that seems weird that they wouldn't build it for Android. They put out this kind of a big device like this and not have Android capabilities, which I'm an Android user, so I can't use it. But otherwise, I kind of like it. However, one other question there. You noted there at the end that you can just bend it. I mean, if you have it outside and it's anywhere reachable, wouldn't that be somebody who's intruding and just walk up and knock it over and keep on going?
That's a good point because, yeah, someone could just place it down and that renders the camera useless, right? And the same thing with the shutter. If you're at home and you press that shutter button in the back, it turns off the camera, obviously, but let's say you forget to press that button and you leave your home. So now the camera is not running, and if you're away for a week, it's pretty much not doing its job. So yeah, those are some things you got to think about. But as far as protecting your privacy in the home, I think it does a pretty good job. And it's priced at $160, which is up there, but it's available right now too.
And that end-to-end encryption, how many different cameras are using that right now?
As far as HomeKit enabled, there are a few HomeKit enabled cameras. The thing is, like I said, with HomeKit cameras, is that you have to pay for that subscription. So you're forced to pay that $3 per month just to store your footage to the cloud. Now, they don't have the option to do with the free option, which is the 5 GB per month plan. So you have to think about that. The only thing you're going to get, let's say you don't choose to do a subscription service, is that you'll only get notifications. So whenever it senses motion, you'll get a quick notification on your phone, and at that point, you could press it on your iPhone, and then you'll see the live stream of that. But besides that, as far as storing the footage, you're not going to get that without doing the subscription.
Well, it's definitely a cool camera overall. I mean, and that's the Logitech Circle View. And so that is the new one there that we're talking about right now. We've got the full review too up at Digital Trends now, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, it's up right there.
So, yep, so people can go there and take a look at it and compare them too, because John tests out all of these. I mean, it's really detailed on what you're looking for, what specifically you want. We've got all of that info there. John, as always, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate your input. You always know so much about all of these, and it, yeah, helps out a lot.
Take care, guys.
John Velasco right there. That is our smart home editor. He knows what he's talking about. So go there to digitaltrends.com, take a look at all of his reviews, whatever it is that you're thinking about getting for your home. And a lot of people are buying smart home stuff. He's got the info right there. So check all of that out. All right, we're going to continue on here with Digital Trends Live. Coming up in just a little bit, we've got Rosie Okamura, YouTube star. Before that, we're going to be hearing from Riley Wynn about salons and gyms opening up and what that experience could be like. So he's got a little package here for you coming up right after this. Stick around, back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
Gyms and salons reopening is part of phase 2 of the coronavirus comeback, and 36 of the states are already there. When these businesses open back up, it won't be business as usual. In fact, many of them will turn to tech to help their customers feel safe. This is how gyms and salons will reopen during the pandemic. I'm Riley Wynn with Digital Trends, and this is What Comes Next, where we highlight the potential of technology to get us back to business and back to life. With salons and gyms closed during this pandemic, our hair has gotten longer and our waistbands a bit wider. But now as things start to reopen, we can head back into the gym to work off that quarantine 15. But getting your sweat on and chopping your locks off is going to look a lot different. Next time you check into the gym, it's going to take a little longer. Gyms are asking members to sign health waivers every time they enter. They're also doing temperature checks and disinfecting phones under UV light. Many are also requiring masks during workouts. So instead of getting your day-to-day mask all stinky and sweaty, it may be a good time to invest in a training mask. That way you can adhere to the new rules and get more out of your workout at the same time. If you didn't wipe down your equipment before coronavirus, which you should have been doing already, you're going to have to now. Gyms are assigning personal spray bottles to every member. No excuses anymore. For treadmill runners, your cardio workout may start to feel like your 9 to 5. This gym in Hong Kong has installed cubicle-like partitions between machines to practice safe social distancing. But gyms aren't stopping there. Most are unplugging machines and rearranging their layouts to create more space for social distancing. You'll notice markings all over the floors and other visual cues that define safe zones. Some are even moving their equipment outside and into their parking lots, so the hardest part of your post-pandemic workout may be finding a parking spot. Gyms are reducing the number of people inside by requiring members to schedule workout times in advance. The post-work power hour will be a tough time to book, so you may have to become an early bird and head into the gym before work, or even try off hours to get your workouts in. But does anyone even remember what time you're supposed to be at the office? Also, when you do finally make it into the gym, make sure to bring your own water bottle, because gym water fountains will be strictly off limits. Alright, you got your pump on, headed home, and took a shower. Now it's time to cut that hair that's been growing for several months while your barbershop has been closed. Salons and barbershops are taking some pretty smart precautions for getting a fresh cut post-pandemic. They're obviously doing the standard medical questionnaire, temperature checks, requiring masks, social distancing, and gathering personal info for contact tracing. The global chain Tony & Guy is investing in personal protective equipment for its employees. This includes masks, face shields, and gloves. Others are using those shoe wrapping machines you sometimes see in high-end real estate, and many are installing partitions between each hair or nail station. Barbershops and salons are even trying new ways to deep clean their shops at the end of the night. And here are some of them. You may have seen fog machines at a concert, but post-pandemic, you'll be seeing them at salons. Dry fog technology is being used to deep clean nail and hair salons. These chemical companies claim that the chemicals in the fog can combat the coronavirus and make the environment uninhabitable for it to live. They also say the fog cleaning process can even provide up to 90 days of protection against the virus. It does not prevent person-to-person transfer, but they do say it will prevent surface-to-person transferring. Another tool in the reopening toolkit is UV storage. Not only are barbers wiping down their utensils more often, they're also using UV light to disinfect their tools. UV light storage boxes at each station can be used on scissors, combs, and even clippers. According to a study published in Nature, UV light isn't 100% effective against the coronavirus, but with a long duration exposure, it is fairly effective. And there's one thing for certain, it can't hurt. Until things get back to normal, you're going to have to be more methodical when it comes to getting a workout or getting a haircut. Technology and safe social distancing methods can help keep us safe so we can get back to how we looked before the pandemic. On our next episode, we'll take a look at how tech is going to help us get back to work and in the office. This is what comes next. Until next time, I'm Riley Wynn with Digital Trends, and thanks for watching.
I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Digital Trends Live, and yes, indeed, it's time for another edition of Who's Got Game, where we partner with Fullscreen to highlight incredible creators, talented people, YouTube stars, actors, and our next guest is part of all of that and so much more. You may know her on YouTube as IRL Rosie, but in real life, on the internet, joining us right now, we have Rosie Okamura. Rosie, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. There's so much I want to talk to you about, but something that we always like to do is find out how everybody got their start. Like, what was it that really led you into this career that you have? I mean, it's a multifaceted career, but what drew you to it?
So as far as YouTube goes, it was all sort of a happy accident, which sounds crazy. So my mom got scammed by a pop-up scam about a year ago, and I was so upset because she fell for it and she gave her personal information out and stuff like that. And I asked her, I was like, Mom, can you please give me the number of the person who called you? And I called them back and I went on Facebook Live actually and had a ton of people kind of tuning in and watching and laughing and commenting as I was prank calling this scammer. And I had so much fun that for the rest of the week, I kind of continuously called them back, and people started coming to me with numbers of people who scammed them, or hey, this Craigslist person, I think it's a scam. Can you check it out for me? And so I just started developing all these crazy characters and calling these scammers. And, my friends really wanted to see the videos more often than just live streams. So I put together a video and put it on YouTube just because it was easier to share that way and just kind of put something together really quick, just for my friends and family, basically, and mainly my mom. And it went viral on Reddit randomly. Like, I didn't post it, some random person posted it, and it blew up on Reddit, and my channel just kind of exploded. And then my video kept going on like the recommended feed, and I woke up one day and I was like, a YouTuber, which doesn't sound like it happens very often, but it did. And I'm just kind of riding that wave and having so much fun. I'm a voice actor as well, so I kind of bring those skills as well as my musical and singing skills into these prank calls and characters. And yeah, here we are today.
That's awesome. I mean, it's so much fun messing with spammers. I've done some things of that myself. It is fun, and you're great at it. And going from there, finding this success on doing something that you wanted to do anyway, and then now, with this huge popularity you've got this vehicle to do all of these other things. And you mentioned, voice acting. What led you into doing voice acting? And you talked to that a little bit about what, maybe somebody who wants to get into voice acting, like what they should be doing to kind of follow.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, hey, I want to get into voice acting. Like, do you have any tips for me to get started? And I usually tell them, I'm like, listen, if it's not something you seriously want to do and want to make a career out of, I don't recommend it, just because it's a lot of work. A lot of people think, oh, like, I've got a great voice. People tell me I should go into voice acting all the time. And I'm like, have you ever told yourself that you want to go into voice acting? Because it's a lot more than just having the voice. I definitely recommend, taking a class, saving up a lot of money. A lot of it is like the tech side of things where you have to, know a lot about recording stuff and mics that you need to use and soundproofing and editing and different kinds of levels when it comes to putting together a recording session, because a lot of it is work that you do yourself. It's not kind of like back in the day very often where you go to a studio and you just kind of speak into the thing and people put it all together for you. A lot of it is the work is in finding the work and getting it done yourself. And then once you book a job, it's easy, right? Because then you just talk. But a lot of it is saving up money, taking a class, and being really comfortable being weird and awkward in front of a lot of people doing the most random stuff to get a certain voice or sound out. Like, if you're not a weirdo, I don't recommend it.
Fair enough. Be a weirdo. Talking about the equipment side of things, just on the tech end, I'm curious what you use for your home studio, especially now. I mean, just in general, people don't go to studios that much more in general, but let alone now where everybody's at home. So what kind of a home setup do you have? What's like the number one thing that you would recommend people have?
So if you'll see behind me, behind the door over there, is a walk-in closet that I have kind of transformed into a vocal booth where there's like a little bit of padding and then clothes. So you don't really need much as far as like a space goes, but you do need a space and you do need a good microphone. And a lot of people ask me like what kind of software to use and apps to use and mics and stuff like that. So I have like a little preamp and a pretty decent microphone, and I use Logic Pro since I'm also a musician, so I do all my sessions through there. But there's a lot of free stuff you can use, like Audacity is free, and that's a very popular thing to use. So there are ways to do it on a less expensive end, but have a space and a pretty good microphone. You can get a decent one for not too expensive. But yeah, I just luckily auditions are done from home, which was not really the case before A couple years ago when you'd have to drive an hour and a half through traffic to show up to a place and say 7 words and then drive all the way back home.
Right.
Now, luckily, you can do it from home, so it saves a lot of time and gas.
Well, you mentioned your music as well. Let's talk about that, about how you got into that and what kind of your inspiration is. For somebody who say that they've never heard your music, how would you describe it?
So I'm in an electronic pop duo with my friend Chris. It's kind of like dreamy sort of pop. My bandmate likes to call it stoner pop, although that's not really the case on my end. So it's very sort of cinematic, and it's on a lot of gamer playlists on Spotify randomly. So it's definitely something you can kind of zone out to, or study to, or drive to. So a lot of people like it because it's a little moody and also upbeat at times too. If you like, I think like churches or banks, stuff like that. A lot of our inspiration comes from that. And my bandmate, he uses a lot of like 80s synths and lots of 80s inspired type music and stuff like that. So he does all the production and the tracks, and then I'll top line. So we do everything, obviously, right now to just be a Dropbox. So he'll write a track, feel inspired, put it in the Dropbox. I'll put on some headphones and kind of just see what I come up with, and then just goes back and forth until it's finished. And that's basically how we've done stuff a lot anyways, just because in LA he lives on the other side of the hill. So I'm like, just email it to me.
Yep.
We don't need to get together.
That's awesome that you could do all of that too remotely like that. Like just send you a track, you've got a studio there in your closet, and boom, you can create something that
great.
easily. That's really cool. Well, you mentioned that you've done some gamer playlists. Are there any games that you're playing right now?
So I don't play a ton of video games, but I've gotten into Fortnite, which is like, I'm so late to the game. Like Fortnite was cool like 2 years ago, and anytime I mention it, people make fun of me. They're like, Fortnite's not cool anymore. So I actually just play mobile. Like I just do mobile games. Like I've played Call of Duty mobile and Fortnite mobile. It's just like a good way to zone out, and I don't need to buy a PS4. Or the PS5 is out now too, which is like crazy, but just mobile games for now. Yeah.
Nice. What is, well, I guess talking about that with mobile games, you just said which ones you're playing. Are there any other ones that you would recommend for somebody to try out?
Yeah, Raid Shadow Legends is pretty fun too. It's definitely more on like the fantasy side, and it's a little bit more, the graphics are a little bit more dreamy and fun and cinematic. Yeah, as far as that, like word games, I love word games too with my friends. I'm pretty competitive, so anything with word scrambles and things that are timed, I love it. So
Nice. Well, Rosie, what should we let people know about as far as what's coming up? Because I know that you're constantly creating things. Like you said, you got your studio there. You're working on things all the time. What's coming up that we can let people know?
So I am working on, I think it's like part 8 of this thing that I've been doing with this Publishers Clearinghouse scammer that I was looking back, kind of pulling some B-roll footage for the next video I'm putting together. I've been messing with this person since September. So it's this Publishers Clearinghouse scammer. I got the number. Someone told me on Instagram that they left their dad like a voicemail that they won $2.5 million and congratulations and all this stuff. So I've been playing my old lady character, whose name is Irma Gersh. Last name Gersh, first name Irma. So I've been texting and calling as her since September, and it's gotten so far to like, I've gotten so deep into it that I've now convinced the scammer that she died from coronavirus, and that I've been calling as like her daughter and like saying that, hey, I'm not sure who you are. My mom mentioned you a lot, and for some reason you're in her will and testament. Like, we're just trying to reach out to this Peter person. And he fell for it. So he thinks now that this old woman who he scammed left money for him. So I'm just doing like a whole reverse scamming the scammer for months now. So that's going to be out very soon.
That's awesome. My old lady is Rita Oswald. That's the one that I've used before on that stuff. Irma Gersh is perfect.
Oh, Rita. We can play bridge together next week.
Absolutely. All right, I got to stop. Okay, Rosie, I want to say thank you very much for joining us here today on this show. This is Digital Trends Live, and you are awesome. And everybody go check out everything you're doing. IRL, Rosie, appreciate you being here, and thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Rosie Okamura right there here on Digital Trends Live. All right, we're sticking with the tech. So thank you, everybody, for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. And, of course, we are live here every single weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions. So much more coming up tomorrow on the show. We, of course, will have all of the latest news for you. And in addition to that, we've got Luke Larson with a preview of WWDC and what is coming up with that. So that is a big event that's going to be happening and a lot to be expected. So Luke will be here for that. So I'm Greg Nibbler. I'll be right back here tomorrow with more Digital Trends Live.